And oh, thank you. They're the people who are performers, and their life is about showing the world that they're successful and living life the best that they can, and it's about showing you who they are. Um, and So again, their key issue is anxiety over their identity, or another way to put it is shame. The next triad are the 5, 6s, and 7s, and their key issue or shadow side is fear. So they live with a lot of anxiety. And for them, life is a problem that they need to address. They need to work it out. They need to make sense of it. And again, I sort of forgot to do this with the 2s, 3s, and 4s, but it's that same thing as the 8s, 9s, and 1s. The first one is always about being in that shadow side. The second person is all about denying that shadow side. And the third person in each of those triads is about controlling whatever that shadow is. So, like the 5s observe the world and they're in it, and they do a lot of book stuff, and they're the head people, the 5, 6s, and 7s. They're the brain people, the people who do a lot of thinking, and everything is coming out of their heads. They don't really deal very well with emotion. Um, so is everybody sort of basically clear on that? We'll talk more about that when we figure out what our numbers are. Okay.
Sherrill, real quick, did I understand? So within each little triad, you can identify the first, second, and third position. And what does the first position tend to do?
They live out whatever that issue is. So an 8 will get very aggressive or very angry. A 2 are the people who just tell everybody they love everything. The one thing that if you end up if you're a woman and you end up getting a 2 when you take the inventory, look at that carefully and see how close it is to the next number that you are, because women are trained to be 2s. That may not be your basic personality type. It may just be your training, your socialization. Because women are supposed to be helpers, right? Wrong. No, we're all supposed to be helpers, but so just look at, that's the only one that's ever sort of a question. Now you as a person may be so integrated that you have a lot of your numbers within when you take an inventory. So for example, if the total score is 28, a person who's really integrated well will have all 3s and 1 4. But most of us, like when I take the test, the 9 is always the highest score for me. And the next score underneath that is usually a 5 or a 2. I don't know why, but those are the 2 parts that I've integrated. And 2 probably because I'm a woman and grew up in the 50s when, you know, we all thought we were Cinderella just waiting to be rescued. But that's another issue. Okay, so triads, any more questions about that? All right, then the next thing you need to sort of know when you're doing your inventory is there are things called wings. You'll hear that word a lot when you're talking to people about Enneagrams. The wings are the two numbers on either side of you. So if I'm a 9, then my wings are 1 and 8. Usually, according to Richard Rohr, who I don't know if any of you know him, he's a priest, a Franciscan priest who does a lot of writing, and he's got a really good set of YouTube videos. If any of you want to watch them, just look up Richard Rohr and Enneagram. And he talks about, usually in the first half of your life, you're probably more dominant in one of those sides. And then in the second half, as you get older, you start moving to the other side, so that supposedly by the time you're 100, both sides will be more equal. Now, that's, some people don't say that. Some people think that you're always going to stay on one side or the other. But so as a 9, for example, I'm more, my wing is 1. So I'm a reformer as well as a mediator, whatever that all means to you guys. But so if you've got a good high number that's on either side of you, you'll know immediately that that's probably your wing. But probably you won't, because there are other factors that we can talk about. So remember, there are wings, and wings do influence how your particular number works in your life. Are there any questions, real quick questions about wings? We'll get into those more too next time. Okay, then the next section that you need to know about is, let me look at, is your number has a whole, what they call level of development. So that means there are 3 parts of a 9 that are very healthy. There are 3 parts of a 9 that could just be average. And there are 3, well, I should say parts, say levels of a 9 that are unhealthy. So if I'm really working hard and doing a lot of self work, then I'm going to be in the healthy range. If I'm just the average run-of-the-mill person, but I am somewhat aware of who I am, then I'm average. And if I'm not aware at all of anything that I do, then I'm probably in the unhealthy range. And a lot of people who have neuroses or, are diagnosed with some kind of problem are probably ranging in that unhealthy thing. The normal person bounces back and forth between healthy and average, because we all have stress points and we all have integrative points. So you can be either integrating or disintegrating. And so those stress points will tend to make you go backwards, go down the scale. If you're really good, you'll just drop down to the average. And again, there's 3 levels in each of those, and they have names too, but we won't get into that today. Just know that you've got those gradations. It's like if you've got black here and white here, then all of those levels are in the gray section. And there's a zillion different shades of gray. So any questions about that? All right. So the last thing that you need to know about Enneagrams, it's not really the last, but it's probably the last one that we want to know about, is that there are stress points and there are points that you move to when things are going really well. So those are the integrations. And a lot of people call those things arrows. Now, 9s, 3s, and 6s are easy. So as a 9, when I'm doing well, I tend to do a lot of healthy 3 things. When I'm stressed, I do a lot of unhealthy 6 things. So my arrow of integration is to 3, and my arrow of disintegration is to 6. And when I see myself doing some of those things, then that makes me even more aware. So, you know, this is really about learning who you are, learning what God has given you, and knowing that whenever you get stressed, you can go to those disintegration parts. And as soon as you recognize that, then you can say I can say to myself, wow, I really need to like figure this out. What's triggering me to do whatever it is that I'm doing? So the hope is that as you do that, then you can learn to work through those areas. Does that make sense? So those are the basic, really basic kinds of things that you need to know about. And if you have any questions about any of those, at least this week, I will be available by phone. And when I rewrite that on the chat place, I'll also put my phone number because you can feel free to call me or text me, either one. Because it would be good if by the time you take the inventory and think about it and decide whether or not that really is your number, because it may not be. Maybe just the way you took the test. It may be what's going on with you on that particular day. I have a good friend who is certified in Enneagram, and she doesn't ask her people to take the test. She wants them to figure it out just by working through it all and then take the test and see if that's correct. I like taking the test. I like you to take the test first because that gives you a starting point. It gives you something to look at and say, yeah, that's really who I am, or nah, I'm not too sure about that. So then you can think about it, work through some of the words that are part of those numbers and say, yeah, it really is me, or no, it's not me. I'm going to work on it for a couple of weeks and then retake the test and see what's going on. So let me give you just a real quick overview of what the numbers are and who those people are. If I can find my little piece of paper here. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to let everybody know, and this is something that you can write down. If you're not a 9, 3, or a 6, but one of the other numbers, your integration and disintegration numbers are different. So if you're, if you write these numbers down, the direction of stress or disintegration for all of those other numbers are, just write them down like this: 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1. So when you're stressed and you're a number 1, you go to 4, to the average or unhealthy parts of what a 4 is when you're stressed. So if you're a 4, you go to 2. If you're a 2, you go to 8. If you're an 8, you go to 5, and so on. So the areas of integration or security are just going the other direction. So they would be 1, 7, 5, 8, 2, 4, 1. And again, this is just so if you're a 4 and you're feeling really good and really moving forward and working and becoming aware of how you react, then you're gonna see all the really good parts of a 1. 1s are reformers. All right. I'm sorry this is so fast.
Excuse me, I just have a question. I don't know if I got confused or heard it wrong. So the second set of numbers is 1, 7, 5, 8, 2, 4, 1.
Wait, so the second set of numbers, the directions of integration or security are 1, 7, 5, 8, 2, 4, 1.
So it repeats the 1 itself twice.
Well, because if you're a 1, you go to 7. If you're a 4, you go to 1. That's why it's twice. So
Okay.
it makes a circle.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's just go to your numbers. And of course, starting with 1. Oh, where'd I go? Sorry. Starting with 1. 1 is called a reformer. 1s, as you remember, are the people who have anger issues. 1s see the world in black and white, not too much gray, and they live their lives to do it right. And what right means to them is, I've lost my little sheet of paper that has my numbers on it. So they live to be correct, which can be a good thing or a shadow thing. So again, they're working on anger is their main issue, and they want to make sure that they have that anger controlled. So 2s are part of those heart-centered people. They're the helpers, and they help because this sounds terrible, but if they're really healthy, it doesn't work this way exactly. 2s in the average and unhealthy state help other people so that they can be needed, and they set it up so that they will be needed. But again, 2s can be socialized. Can you do that, Ben? I don't have that, do I?
Ben's gonna jump on as a co-host and see if he can fix that
Okay,
back.
thanks.
Yeah.
Now I've lost you. Can you hear me?
A whale shark and a three-more hitchhiker have traveled far to empty ocean. Now they're in for a surprise and plenty.
Geez. I'm back. So twos. Too many pieces of paper. So threes. Oh, here we go. Let me see if I forgot something here. So twos are the perfect people, the reformers. And their job is to make sure everybody is doing it right. And you also need to know they're usually very critical of themselves. Twos are the helpful people, or they're called helpers. And they're energized by learning the needs, wants, and desires of other people so that the other people will become dependent on them. And again, that's not necessarily healthy. And when they become healthier, they do it because they love to do it. Threes must succeed. Threes are their quote unquote name, and I sort of hesitate to use these names, but that's, if you do much reading, you'll see that those names are sort of all over. But threes are performers. They're really good at multitasking and being efficient and successful. They like to, their world is about showing others whatever. Fours. Fours are what I call the drama queens. Who is it that did the, oh, I'm so sick, back in the old black and white movies. They are intense and dramatic. Their main purpose is to be as unique as possible. They have a lot of mood swings. They have trouble with goodbyes and loss, and are very melancholic. Fives, and again, these are really short. Sometimes you may think of them as negative, but I just want you to get sort of a bird's eye, little tiny view of them, so you can sort of think about yourself and where you might fit into this. But when you take the inventory, it hopefully will become much clearer. And then in the next session, we'll talk about all those light sides, those good sides that you love to have, as well as the shadow sides that you're not too sure you want, but it is part of who you are. So remember, we want to be, God sees us as complete whole people with both the light and the shadow. So again, fives live in their heads. They are simple in terms of they like things to be simple. They live simply. They have usually very soft voices. They are usually very quiet and withdrawn, not always, but usually. And they like to listen, but they don't like to share. A little secretive there. Sixes, fear-based. Sixes are the most anxious of the people, but they're highly, highly loyal. I have a lot of that. That I think comes from my growing up. Growing up in the 50s meant you were loyal. It just, everybody was loyal. You never changed jobs unless you were forced to, because you were loyal to the company. Millennials this day and age move, a lot of times will move from job to job to job to job because their needs are different. Sixes are trustworthy and they hate it. It's one of the unforgivables for them for somebody to be untrustworthy. They feel threatened and they worry a lot. Sevens, very optimistic. They are the quote unquote fun lovers of all of the nine. They don't see too many problems. They focus on fun. Now remember, these are the head people, the brain people. They put a positive slant on everything, and they're usually the life of the party. They're always looking for adventures, a new adventure, just like some of us. And again, we all have a little bit of some of these people in us. Eights, remember those anger people? They are focused on power. They're usually really good leaders if they're in the healthy range. Excellent leaders if they're in the healthy range. Their project is to champion the powerless. They don't like injustice. They enjoy fighting, or a better word might be debating with everybody. My son-in-law is an 8, and I think my youngest daughter has an 8 wing, and the two of them, you don't want to play any games with them. Because I play games for fun. They play games to win, and they fight with each other all through the game. They are all, 8s are all or nothing people. And they do associate anger with power. They need to push the envelope. They need to buck authority. And for them, arguing is a way of connecting. And then 9s, I've already told you way too much about myself, but we tend to dissociate. We don't live. We're not part of the world when we're unhealthy. We move away from that. We avoid conflict at almost any reason whatsoever. There is no way I want to get into any kind of argument with anybody. I've learned to do that when I need to. As a nurse, and sometimes as a charge nurse, I would have to sit down and have that talk with somebody, but that was definitely the worst part of my job. We're usually seen as negotiators or mediators. We like to just be. Our key issue is anger. We deny that we have it. And part of that also is that we tend to procrastinate because we're not living in the real world. So we make all of our decisions, well, I shouldn't say all. We make decisions mostly by process of elimination. It's not what we want because we're so melded with whoever it is that we're in relationship with that we tend to take on whatever that person wants. So instead of thinking about what I want, I usually am thinking about, like if somebody says, let's go to dinner, okay, then where would you like to go? I don't know. Where would you like to go? Is usually the way the conversation goes. I'm getting better. But 9s are like that. So anyway, and we're challenged by the concept of time, which makes us procrastinators. Do everything at the last minute. So that's a thumbnail sketch of each of the 9. And once you take your inventory and send it to me, I will send you a lot more information, as well as some really good books. So the people that you need to know in terms of Enneagrams or are part of the history of Enneagrams. One is Don Riso, R-I-S-O. The inventory at the Enneagram Center is called the Riso Hudson inventory, because Dr. Riso, who is a psychologist, came up with that. The other interesting thing that I just wanted to mention, because I know that Ben and Annalise are going to have a baby, and so I'm sure you're thinking a lot, or maybe not, but thinking about, what's the difference between nurture and nature? So what is your baby, what in terms of personality especially, how do you get your personality? Is it nurture or nature? And the answer that I liked when I've heard people talk about that is Richard Rohr, the Franciscan priest, says it's 3 things. It's nature, nurture, and choice. Because choice is what makes your key issue the issue. When you're 1 and 2 and 3 and potentially 4, whatever has been going on around you makes you, as a little child who don't really have any thoughts in terms of concrete thoughts, makes you react in certain ways. And those ways are ways that you cope with whatever you're uncomfortable with. And that coping mechanism is what ends up being your key issue. So my coping mechanism was to be invisible. And I won't get into why that is, but it was about being invisible. And that's why 9s, one of the reasons why 9s deny that they have any anger, because we can't have anger and we can't be too happy either, because you just sort of want to fade into the woodwork. So whatever those coping mechanisms are not bad things. They helped you cope. They helped you grow up and become who you are. They are only there for you to become more aware of those are your coping mechanisms. And are they working now? Are they working now as an adult? They worked when you were a kid, but if they're not working now, then you're probably going to hit into those unhealthy ranges. And none of you are there, any of you that I know at least. But know that that's because you're now aware of that, maybe not in that sense of you're aware of why it is that you coped that way, but that is how you learn to cope, and hopefully your coping has grown as you've gotten older. So it's 12, and I know we started just a minute late, and I will put on the chat thing so you can stay as long as you need to. I will put on the chat my email as well as my telephone number. I will also be here if any of you have any questions. Are there any questions now?
Hi, thank you. This is fascinating. I love it. And I just
Oh, good.
wanted, thank you for sharing. And I wanted to ask you, how did you get involved in the, not involved, but how did you begin to study this Enneagram?
Well, it started as a joke. A bunch of us were on our way in a car, and we had a book, which I will give you the name of on that list when I send you your stuff. And this one person kept saying, I am not a one. I don't care what you say. I am not a one. So I didn't know what they were talking about. So I opened the book and I started reading the list of what ones are like. And the whole car would just bust out laughing because we were reading an absolute perfect description of this person. So then I decided I needed to figure out what I was and bounced back and forth between a couple of numbers from this book. And then when I finally took the test, and ever since then, every time I take the inventory, it always comes out strongly as a 9. So
Really?
and then I had to figure out, why am I like this? What does it mean that I deny anger? I don't deny anger. I just don't get angry. And then the few times that I have really gotten angry, I've like gotten way out of control. And it's like, this is scary. I need to figure this out. So here I am. And I've read probably 3 books and scanned probably a zillion books. And I've taken a couple of good classes. Like I said, the last class I took was just a basic, but it took 12 hours. So, but it's fun for me because I like to know why it is that I do certain things, because I go through life just sort of reacting and sometimes not reacting and wondering why. So that's me.
Thank you. And how many years, this is my last question, I promise. How many years have you been doing this?
Well, when the car incident happened in, I think, 91 or 92, and probably the last 10 years I've gotten really more interested, and it's a really the other interesting thing is each personality type, there are a couple of books out that each personality type likes to do spiritual things in different ways, like people who like to do contemplative stuff, or people who like to pray certain ways, or people who like to read certain books on spirituality or religion. That those are things. I will also add that to your after you send me your inventory, I'll add that to what those numbers kind of like to do, in case you haven't done much in terms of spirituality. This is a very, of all of the personality types, this is type things that you can do, like the Myers-Briggs and the Big Five or whatever. This is one of those that's much more spiritually motivated than some of the others. So I'll add that little piece to that too. Any other questions? Thank you, Patricia. Carol, your mute is on, I think.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
This is Darlene.
Hi, Darlene.
I haven't figured out how to put my name on my thing yet.
That's okay.
I've taken Myers-Briggs, and in Myers-Briggs, when I took it, I was in such a minority that they said if a teacher had me in her classroom and they wanted to pair you with like kind of people, they probably couldn't find one.
Are you an INFP?
I have no idea what it was, but it was like, this is really, and I'm just wondering on this, if you're odd, which was a nice revelation to know I was odd. Are there people that are such a mixture that they don't fit any one category?
No. In this one, they say that everybody has a dominant type. Now,
okay.
as you get older, so in Myers-Briggs, as you get older and you're growing, evolving, then you get closer to the middle zero, and not be so far out on the stretches. In this particular Enneagram, as you get older, you become more integrated. So yes, I may be a 9, but I have more of all of the other numbers within me than I did when I first started out in the 90s.
So your 9 is like your dominant feature and probably your fallback when
Right,
you're not
right,
thinking.
right.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Am I out of mute? This is Carol.
yeah, I hear you.
Okay, I didn't get the email that I was supposed to do the free.
Okay, so for those of you who came in a little later, if you go to chat, and if you can't do that, let me know. And I first put in my email, but somebody said it's not there anymore. And then I put in the 2 test places that you could take. One is EnneagramInstitute.com, and that one costs $12. If you don't want to do that one, then the other one, and I don't know why it's called this, but it is cloverleaf.me. M-E. So
And
you can-
Sherrill,
yes.
for those of us who joined the Zoom after you typed those things,
Uh-huh.
they don't appear for us. So would you mind typing them in again?
I will do that. I'm just answering questions now, and unlike you, I'm not a multitasker.
That's
I
Cheryl's
thought-
subtle way of saying I'm a 3.
Was that subtle though?
Sorry. Okay.
Well done on not
Oh,
being the
thank
active
you,
nine.
Annalisa. Is
You're
is
welcome.
Annalisa's Cloverleaf and Enneagram up there
Can everyone see it?
for everybody? Thank you.
Sure.
Now I'm not sure if anyone else has any more questions, but Sherrill, I didn't know if now was a good time for me to just give a little bit of a sneak peek as to what's going to happen next week.
Perfect time. It's a
Okay.
perfect time.
Perfect. So next week we're going to take, I don't want to say a step away from Enneagram necessarily, because it all fits together. But next week I'm going to be leading the discussion, and it's going to be a discussion about spiritual gifts and what they are. And the general premise of this series of discussions is to understand your Enneagram profile or personality, as it were, and how that ties into your spiritual gifts and how they can be applied within your church or within your community. So it's really, we're reaching from 2 different areas to kind of bring things together in one fashion. So because Sherrill is definitely the Enneagram expert, though that may just be the one in me who is too perfectionistic to say that I'm any good at it. But no, since Sherrill is leading the Enneagram, I'm going to be leading the next week. And then 2 weeks, or I guess 3 weeks from now, I'll be leading the next discussion about spiritual gifts, what they are, and how you can use your spiritual gifts within the church.
Got it. I just want to say thanks to everybody who's been here. I hope that this has helped a little bit. And again, I'll spend as much time as you want and give you as much information as you want. I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea. I just get really passionate about it because I'm constantly trying to become more aware of who I am, and in terms of relationships with my kids and with the people that I know and the people that I love. It's good to know how those relationships work and how we can make them even better. And then to also then realize that part of this Enneagram person that I am, what are some of my gifts and how can I use them? Both at church, which is really important for me, but also out into the local community and the world at large, because that's what I think God made us for, to be part of this big, wonderful creation. So anyway. Everybody okay? Any last questions for either myself or for April?
If you could not leave so that we can write down the
I won't leave.
information. Thank you. Do we need to do any reading for next Sunday?
No. No. April, I should say. Do they need to do any reading for next Sunday?
No, not really. Yeah, just come with clear minds and a pen and paper.
Right. And remember, after you take your test, or if you already know what number you are, you can just send me that. But if you take the inventory, try to do it sometime this week and send it to me. And then I will send you a list of the authors that I think are, and their books that I think are probably really good. Not that you have to read any of them, but at least you've got that information, as well as a small paragraph or two or a bunch of words that belong to your numbers, so that you can look at those, think about them before week 3 and decide, are you really that number? And are those really words that you can resonate with? Or do you need to think about it more? So, and then we can talk about that week 3. Okay. All right. I'll just leave this on for those of you that need to thing, but that's it.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Could we
Yes,
all?
thank you, Sherrill.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and give us our, I'm sorry, going. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good week.